Sam thought his life was picture perfect, a loving wife, 2 kids, and a stable home. But his world crumbles when he discovers Claire's betrayal, a secret affair masked by lies and late nights. Determined to uncover the truth, Sam's search for answers spirals into a calculated plan to reclaim his life and dignity. As he pieces together the threads of deceit, Sam confronts Claire, ready to sever ties forever. But just as he begins to rebuild, Claire reveals a tragic secret that shifts everything he thought he knew about their broken marriage. Faced with heartbreak and the looming shadow of loss, Sam must navigate betrayal, grief, and love's fragile remains to protect what's left of their family. A gripping tale of revenge, redemption, and the unexpected cost of forgiveness, this story explores the depths of human resilience and the pain of moving forward when the past refuses to let go. It was a Thursday morning like any other. The house buzzed with the chaos of getting the kids ready for school. Claire darted between rooms, her perfume lingering in the air as she yelled reminders about forgotten homework and lunchboxes. I stood by the counter, stirring coffee and pretending everything was normal. It was a facade I had perfected over 15 years of marriage. Claire was the kind of woman people described as charming. Her sparkling laugh could light up a room, and she had this effortless grace that made people gravitate toward her. I had fallen for her hard and fast, and for a long time, I believed she was the best thing that ever happened to me. But as the years passed, small cracks began to appear in the foundation of our marriage, cracks I tried desperately to ignore. That morning, the first real fissure appeared. After dropping the kids at school, I decided to clean out Claire's car. It was overdue, and I figured I'd surprise her. She'd appreciate the gesture, and I liked the idea of doing something thoughtful. As I vacuumed the floor mats and wiped down the dashboard, I opened the glove compartment to organize the mess of receipts and random papers. That's when I saw it, a small box tucked in the corner. My heart sank when I realized what it was: protection. My mind reeled. We hadn't used those in years. At first, I tried to rationalize it. Maybe she bought them for some practical joke or as a gag gift. But deep down, I knew better. Claire's behavior over the past few months had been different. She was on her phone constantly, and there were unexplained late nights at work. Every time I asked, she brushed it off with a reassuring smile. "You're overthinking, Sam," she'd say. "Work's just been crazy." I told myself not to jump to conclusions. People make mistakes, and there had to be a logical explanation. But a seed of doubt had been planted, and it began to grow, twisting and curling in the corners of my mind. That evening, after the kids were asleep, I confronted her. She was sitting on the couch, scrolling through her phone. I approached, holding the box in my hand. "Care to explain this?" Her eyes flicked from the screen to the box and then back to the screen, as if pretending it wasn't there would make it go away. "What is that?" she asked, feigning ignorance. "You tell me," I said, my voice calm but firm. She scoffed, rolling her eyes. "Sam, it's probably old. I don't even remember where that came from." "Really?" I pressed. "Because it doesn't look old." She stood, crossing her arms defensively. "Are you accusing me of something?" "Seriously, Sam, this is ridiculous." I stared at her, searching for some sign of guilt, but her face was a mask of indignation. For a moment, I almost believed her. Maybe I was being ridiculous. Maybe the long hours, the secrecy, the sudden increase in gym visits, all of it was innocent. But then I remembered the times she came home smelling like cologne that wasn't mine, and my resolve hardened. "I just want the truth," I said quietly. "I already told you," she snapped. "There's nothing to tell." "God, Sam, why do you always have to make something out of nothing?" She stormed off, leaving me standing there, the box still in my hand. Her reaction was defensive, almost too defensive. But without proof, what could I do? I wasn't going to win this argument, not tonight. The next few days passed in a blur. Claire acted as though nothing had happened, laughing with the kids at dinner and chatting with neighbors as if our confrontation had been a figment of my imagination. But I couldn't shake the feeling that something was deeply wrong. So, I started paying attention, closer than I ever had before. Late one night, as Claire showered, her phone buzzed on the nightstand. I glanced at the screen. A text preview flashed, "Can't wait to see you tonight. Same room as last time." My stomach twisted into a knot. The sender was saved as J. I stared at the screen, my pulse pounding in my ears. She had lied. She had been lying all along. The doubt that had gnawed at me for months erupted into a tidal wave of certainty. But instead of confronting her right then and there, I made a decision that surprised even me. I wasn't going to react, not yet. If she wanted to play games, I'd let her. But I'd play by my own rules. That night, as Claire slipped into bed beside me, I pretended nothing was wrong. I kissed her goodnight, my lips brushing against hers like a man who hadn't just seen the truth laid bare. She drifted off to sleep, unaware that the man lying next to her had already begun plotting his next move. For weeks, I gathered evidence. I combed through her credit card statements, tracked her locations via the GPS on her phone, and even hired a private investigator. Every piece of information I uncovered confirmed what I already knew. Her work dinners were rendezvous. Her business trips were getaways. And Jay wasn't just some random fling, he was a consistent presence in her life, a shadow I hadn't noticed until it was too late. By the time I had all the proof I needed, the man who still loved Claire had been replaced by someone colder, someone calculating. I wasn't just going to confront her. I was going to dismantle the world she had built on lies. It wasn't about revenge, it was about reclaiming my dignity. The date of our wedding anniversary was approaching. Claire had planned a work dinner that evening, which suited me just fine. I had my own plans. Claire seemed almost giddy as our anniversary approached. She'd been careful to hide it, but I knew the signs. The work dinner she mentioned was no dinner at all. It was another rendezvous with Jay. I didn't ask for details, I didn't need to. Her excitement betrayed her, and she didn't even realize it. On the day of our anniversary, I woke up early, unusually cheerful. Claire noticed. "What's got you in such a good mood?" she asked, sipping her coffee at the kitchen island. "Just happy it's our special day," I replied with a smile. Her face flickered with guilt before settling into a mask of faux cheer. "Right. It is. But, Sam, you know how work can be. I'll be home late tonight, but maybe we can celebrate this weekend?" "Of course," I said smoothly. "Work's important." She visibly relaxed, her guard dropping once again. That was the thing about Claire, she was confident, but it was a confidence that bordered on arrogance. She believed she could play this game without consequences. I spent the day preparing. I had rehearsed this moment in my mind for weeks, but the reality was different. My nerves buzzed with anticipation as I went through the motions of my plan. The documents were neatly arranged, the photos printed, and the private investigator's final report tucked into a sleek black folder. I even dressed the part, wearing the suit Claire had always said made me look dangerously handsome. It seemed fitting. By evening, Claire was already dressed for her so-called dinner. She wore a sleek black dress that clung to her figure, paired with heels that made her look statuesque. For a moment, I felt a pang of sadness. She was stunning, the woman I had fallen in love with all those years ago. But the betrayal had tarnished everything. "Do I look okay?" she asked, twirling slightly. "You look amazing," I said, and I meant it. "But before you go, I have a surprise for you." Her brow furrowed slightly, suspicious. "A surprise?" "Yeah. It won't take long. Come into the living room." She hesitated but followed me. I gestured for her to sit on the couch, and I handed her the folder. She looked at it quizzically, then opened it. As her eyes scanned the first few pages, her expression shifted from confusion to shock. By the time she reached the photos, her hands were trembling. What is this?" she stammered. "It's everything you've been hiding," I said calmly. "Every lie, every excuse, every night you spent with him. It's all here, Claire." She stared at me, her mouth opening and closing like a fish out of water. "Sam, I can explain." "Can you?" I shot back. "Because it seems pretty clear to me. You've been lying to my face for months, maybe longer." "How long, Claire? How long has this been going on?" Tears welled in her eyes. "It's not what it looks like." "It's exactly what it looks like," I said, my voice firm. "Don't insult me by pretending otherwise." She crumpled onto the couch, clutching the folder like it might somehow protect her. "I didn't mean for it to happen," she whispered. "I never wanted to hurt you." "You didn't mean for it to happen." I laughed bitterly. "That's the best you've got. You've been sneaking around with him, lying to me, to our kids, to everyone. But you didn't mean for it to happen." "Sam, please. Let me explain." "I'm all ears," I said, crossing my arms. "Tell me how you justify tearing apart our family." She started to speak but faltered, the weight of her actions finally sinking in. Her carefully constructed narrative was crumbling, and she had no defense. Instead, she resorted to tears, sobbing into her hands. I watched her for a moment, a mix of anger and pity swirling inside me. This was the woman I had built a life with, the mother of my children. But she was also the woman who had betrayed me, who had chosen her selfish desires over the sanctity of our marriage. "You know," I said quietly, "I thought about forgiving you. For the kids, if nothing else. But then I realized something. This isn't just a mistake. It's a choice. You chose him, Claire. Over and over again." Her head snapped up, her tear-streaked face desperate. "No, Sam. I chose you. I love you. He was nothing. It didn't mean anything." "Don't," I said sharply. "Don't stand there and tell me it didn't mean anything. You don't destroy a marriage for nothing." She reached for my hand, but I stepped back. "Sam, please. We can fix this. I'll do anything. Just, please don't leave me." "It's too late," I said, my voice cold. "You didn't just betray me. You betrayed our family. And you need to live with the consequences of that." I walked to the front door and opened it. "You should go. I assume you have someone waiting for you." Her face crumpled again, and for a moment, she just sat there, paralyzed by the weight of her actions. Then, slowly, she rose to her feet. She didn't look at me as she walked past, her heels clicking softly against the hardwood floor. As the door closed behind her, I felt an overwhelming sense of relief. It was over. Or so I thought. The house felt eerily quiet after Claire left. I stood in the doorway for a moment, staring at the spot where she had been. A swirl of emotions churned in my chest, anger, sadness, relief. I closed the door and locked it, as if that simple act could seal off the pain that had infiltrated my life. The kids were staying with my parents that night, part of the plan I'd meticulously crafted. I couldn't risk them seeing what might happen. They didn't deserve to be caught in the crossfire of Claire's choices. I poured myself a drink, the amber liquid swirling in the glass like my turbulent thoughts. The images in that folder replayed in my mind, Claire laughing with Jay, their intimate embraces, the lies layered over every memory. I had uncovered everything, but what now? What did life look like on the other side of betrayal? The silence was interrupted by my phone buzzing on the counter. I glanced at the screen, Claire. I didn't answer. She called again, and again. Finally, a message popped up, "Sam, please. We need to talk." I'm coming home. I stared at the words, my grip tightening around the glass. She didn't get to make demands anymore. She didn't get to decide when and where we talked. Not after what she had done. I ignored the message and took another sip of whiskey, letting the burn anchor me. A few hours later, headlights swept across the driveway. I heard the sound of her car door slamming and the rapid click of her heels on the pavement. The front door rattled, and then came the knock. "Sam, please let me in," she called, her voice thick with desperation. "I just want to talk." I set the glass down and walked to the door. I didn't open it. Instead, I spoke through the heavy wood. "Go back to him, Claire. That's where you want to be, right?" "I don't want to be with him," she pleaded. "I want to fix this. I want to fix us." I laughed bitterly. "You're a little late for that. Sam, please. Just let me in. We need to talk." I hesitated, then unlocked the door. She stepped inside, her face pale and tear-streaked, her makeup smeared from crying. For a moment, she looked like the woman I had loved for so many years, the woman I thought I still knew. But then the memories of her betrayal came rushing back, and the illusion shattered. "Say what you need to say," I said, crossing my arms. "I made a mistake," she began, her voice trembling. "A horrible, stupid mistake. But it didn't mean anything, Sam. It wasn't about you. Wasn't about me." I snapped, my voice rising. "It wasn't about me, Claire. You cheated on me. You lied to me. You made it about me the moment you decided to betray our marriage." She flinched but pressed on. "I was lost, Sam. I felt like I wasn't enough, like I was just disappearing. And Jay, he made me feel seen." "That's your excuse. You felt invisible, so you tore our family apart." "I wasn't thinking clearly," she whispered. I thought I could keep it separate, that it wouldn't affect us." "Separate?" I repeated, my voice dripping with disbelief. "You thought you could have an affair and it wouldn't affect us? Do you even hear yourself?" Her tears started again, falling silently down her cheeks. "I know I've hurt you. I know I've broken everything. But I love you, Sam. I always have." I shook my head, my chest tightening with anger and grief. "You don't destroy the people you love, Claire. Love doesn't look like this." She stepped closer, reaching for my hand. "Please, Sam. Don't give up on us. I'll do anything, therapy, counseling, whatever it takes. Just tell me what I can do to fix this." For a moment, I faltered. The part of me that had loved her for so long wanted to believe her, to believe that we could repair the damage. But then I remembered the folder, the months of lies, the betrayal etched into every interaction. Trust was the foundation of any relationship, and ours had crumbled to dust. "There's nothing to fix, Claire," I said, my voice steady. "You made your choice. Now you have to live with it." Her face crumpled, and she sank onto the couch, sobbing. I watched her, feeling a pang of guilt. But guilt wasn't enough to undo the damage. I had given her my trust, my loyalty, my heart. And she had thrown it all away. "You need to leave," I said quietly. "Go back to wherever you've been staying. This isn't your home anymore." "Sam, please," she begged. "Don't do this. I'll do anything." I turned away, my jaw clenched. "It's too late, Claire. You should have thought about that before you betrayed me." Her sobs grew louder, but I didn't waver. I walked to the door and opened it, gesturing for her to leave. She stood slowly, her movements heavy with defeat. As she passed me, she paused, her eyes searching mine one last time. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "Not as sorry as I am," I replied. She stepped outside, and I closed the door behind her, locking it once again. This time, it felt final. I leaned against the door, my chest heaving with the weight of everything that had happened. The house was silent once more, but this time, it felt different. It felt like the beginning of something new, a life without Claire, without lies, without betrayal. I poured myself another drink and sat down at the kitchen table, staring at the empty seat across from me. The life I had built was gone, but I was still here. And that was enough. For now. Weeks turned into months. Life without Claire was quieter, simpler, but undeniably hollow. The kids adjusted to the new routine, though Emma cried more often at night, and Tyler asked questions I couldn't answer. I told them the truth, only as much as they needed to know. Their mother had made choices that broke our family. They hated the answer, but they didn't press. Claire reached out occasionally, her texts filled with apologies and promises to change. I ignored them all. The divorce papers had been served, and soon enough, everything would be final. I kept telling myself that I was better off without her, that my life would rebuild itself in time. But some nights, when the kids were asleep and the house was silent, I felt the absence of her presence like a phantom limb. She had betrayed me, yes, but she had also been my partner, my anchor, for so many years. One Friday evening, I was tidying up the house when the doorbell rang. I wasn't expecting anyone. When I opened the door, Claire stood there, her face pale and her eyes red-rimmed. She looked smaller somehow, her usual poise replaced by an unsettling fragility. "Sam," she said softly, her voice trembling. "Can we talk? Please." I hesitated. Everything in me screamed to close the door, to protect myself from whatever mess she had brought to my doorstep. But something about her expression stopped me. I stepped aside, letting her in. She sat at the kitchen table, her hands trembling as she gripped her purse. "I know I'm the last person you want to see," she began, her voice breaking. "But I need you to hear me out." "I'm listening," I said coldly, leaning against the counter. She looked down, her fingers fumbling with the strap of her purse. "I've made so many mistakes, Sam. I know I can't undo them. But there's something I need to tell you." I waited, my heart pounding in my chest. Her vulnerability unsettled me in a way I couldn't explain. "I've been sick," she said finally, her voice barely above a whisper. "For a while now." My stomach dropped. "Sick? What are you talking about?" She looked up, tears streaming down her face. "It started a few months ago. I thought it was just stress, but I went to the doctor, and they ran tests. It's cancer, Sam. Advanced." The words hit me like a freight train. I stared at her, my mind struggling to process what she had just said. "Cancer?" I repeated, the word foreign on my tongue. She nodded, her hands shaking as she wiped at her tears. "I didn't know how to tell you. I didn't think I had the right, after everything I've done. But I needed you to know." I sank into the chair across from her, my chest tightening. Anger, sadness, guilt, they all collided in a storm of emotions I couldn't control. "Why are you telling me this now?" I asked, my voice thick with pain. "What do you want from me?" "I don't want anything," she said quickly. I didn't want to die without you knowing. You were my best friend, Sam. I know I ruined that, but you deserve to know the truth." The room fell silent, her words hanging heavy in the air. I wanted to hate her, to hold on to the anger that had fueled me for so long. But as I looked at her, fragile and broken, I felt that anger start to slip away, replaced by something I hadn't felt in months, grief. "What about the kids?" I asked quietly. Her face crumpled. "I haven't told them yet. I couldn't. I was hoping you could help me, figure out how." The thought of Emma and Tyler losing their mother shattered something inside me. I had spent so much time focusing on my own pain that I hadn't considered what her absence would mean for them. They loved her, despite everything. And now, I would have to find a way to help them navigate a loss I couldn't prevent. Claire, I began, my voice trembling. I don't know if I can forgive you. But for the kids, I'll help. Whatever they need, we'll figure it out. She nodded, her tears flowing freely now. Thank you, Sam. That's more than I deserve. The weeks that followed were a blur of doctor's appointments, difficult conversations, and moments of quiet despair. Claire's condition deteriorated quickly, and by the time we told the kids, she was too weak to comfort them. I did my best to hold us all together, but the weight of it threatened to crush me. The night she passed, I sat by her bedside, her hand cold and frail in mine. She looked at me, her eyes filled with a mixture of sorrow and gratitude. I'm sorry for everything, she whispered. I wish I could take it all back. I didn't reply. I just squeezed her hand and stayed with her until the end. When the funeral was over, and the house was empty again, I sat alone in the quiet. The anger was gone, replaced by a hollow ache that seemed to stretch on forever. Claire had made mistakes, but she had also been a part of my life, my family. And now, she was gone. The kids and I would move forward, somehow. But the scars of betrayal and loss would remain, a reminder of the life we had built, and lost, together.